We've all been doing this for a while. I made my bonus many years based on my cold calling programs or my appointment setting programs at the time. Those are gone. And we're still kind of clinging to them in some ways because, we know that sending the BDRs off to make calls is what does generate engagement and opportunity, but that is not how buyers want to buy. When you succeed, it's because you got lucky sometimes. More than that tactic is actually what's creating demand in the market.
This is Revenue Makers, the podcast by 6 Sense, investigating successful revenue strategies that pushed companies ahead.
Saima, you know what? This is kind of a big day. This is after our QBR, and we're going to call this the beginning of season 2 of Revenue Makers. Can you believe that? Season 2.
We're growing up, Adam.
We may introduce a villain this season. No, I'm kidding. But for the beginning of season 2, and of course, as a broken record, I always talk about how great our guests are, but we have a great guest, as always. And today we have Domenic Colasante, who is the CEO of 2X Marketing. 2X is a marketing as a service agency that helps organizations sort of bring in additional talent and headcount to run programs, especially account-based marketing. And we're going to have all sorts of different names for it in today's session. But he's got some really great actionable tips on how to make the transition, how to get sales on board. There's so much here. I was taking notes.
Oh, same. And he comes from experience because he was a CMO facing these problems and he's like, I got to go fix it. And so the model that they've put in place, the ability to reduce costs and increase impact, I mean, who doesn't want that?
Yeah, and he's built a model in a big way. Talking about 1,000 employees in his organization. That's massive. So really providing some amazing support and some free actionable advice for the listeners today. So let's hop in.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, Dom, thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to this chat. Let's just dive in. Big, meaty question. What do you see kind of as the biggest challenge that your clients face when they're trying to make this transition? They're contact-based MQLs. They're going account-based. What's the biggest hump?
Thanks for the softball out of the game.
Why not, right? Let's just do it.
Break the ice and jump in on it. So I think it comes down to that we've spent more time explaining to the revenue org why this sort of like old world MQLs and the sort are bad than we have about the new world and why it's better. And I think a lot of salespeople will agree, like the stuff that marketing used to send them doesn't convert enough, isn't the kind of things they want, and they want something different. I don't know if the revenue org at large really understands what's out there now, and intent-driven ABM and routing highly engaged accounts. Like, what does that mean? What is intent data? Where does it come from? And what's this black box of where all the information and signals and engagement comes together? And how do we really operate in a world where there's a buying committee and there's multi-threading and we're adding value and being helpful and we're not just chasing contact-based responders? I think it's more of knowing where we're going to versus knowing what we're coming away from. And I think that's where folks sometimes can get lost and really look for, how are we really going to modernize?
And I think that's such a good answer because across the board, I think companies understand that the MQL isn't the way forward, or just the old way of doing things isn't where we should continue to stay. But it's really hard for people to figure out, okay, how do we get to that next promised land? And so that's a good answer. I know we threw you right in there, but Domenic Colasante, tell us about yourself and what you do.
Sure, yeah. CEO of 2X, a marketing as a service company. One of the fastest growing marketing service companies in the world. We grow about 100% year on year, about 1,000 employees in the firm. My background, I'm a CMO. CMO now trapped in a CEO's body. I spent a lot of my time in tech marketing. I worked at SAP for a bit, worked at Siemens, did field marketing, marketing ops, events, revenue marketing, ABM before we called it that. We used to call it top accounts or strategic accounts marketing. I did that for a bit. And then it was a CMO. And really in that journey of being an operator, being a marketer, led me to create the firm that I always wanted to buy from that didn't exist.
1,000 people?
We do.
That's amazing.
We do.
It's really something.
Amazing. Well, it's been fun seeing the rocket ship of your company over the years. I'd love to kind of build on Adam's question. And I think the acronym is probably what's causing some of this, but ABM, right? Account-based marketing. I think it's almost a misnomer because there's such an important component here around sales adoption and making it a tangible human experience for the sales team. So can you talk a little bit about how you factor that into the programs that your company's helping other firms with.
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right. And ABM is, whoever created that word was well-intentioned, and it's become too popular to get rid of now, but it's really account-based go-to-market and account-based experience, account-based everything, and marketing and sales working together, not just marketing. It's almost more than 50% sales than marketing. I think we spend a lot of time, we go through this sort of change journey and getting the organization ready to operate in an account-based way, talking about the broad level, like sort of in all hands meetings and in training sessions and via emails to our whole sales force, our whole marketing team. I don't think we spend enough time in like one-to-one human conversations about this is what's different for you, or this is what's different for this account, or what's different for this phone call we're going to make. And when we bring it down to a very human one-to-one conversation, I think we have a very different discussion of what marketing and sales are doing every day.
So it's HBM, human-based marketing is what we're really talking about, right?
Yeah.
Saima and I we both find ourselves in a lot of times being in where we work on customer calls a lot. And that conversation comes up time and time again about the sales adoption. How do I get sales on board? You kind of nailed it though, I think, in terms of just like the human side of it, because that brings it down to a level that people really can think about. I think to what you said in the beginning also about like, here's what's good. Like we're not overcoming some challenge and making a transition that's going to be hard. We're going to the promised land and here's why. In that regard, when you think about some more specific, tangible best practices or some things that you have helped your clients do with their sales team, because again, like you're obviously in marketing as a service, so you're working from that marketing side from the beginning, but like, what are some of the things that you're kind of saying to your clients? Like, these are some best practices. These are things that are really going to help bringing them on board from the sales side.
Yeah. So I'll give you an example. So marketing's adopted this ideology for many years now. So most of our marketing departments are generating these highly engaged accounts and then passing them over to sales. And I think in that moment, it's where marketing, you pick up the phone and have a human conversation with a rep, a BDR, a salesperson, wherever it goes, and say, let me talk to you about what I just sent to you. Like, this is what it is. This is what it means. This is where it came from. This is how this account became activated. Let me show you where you can see that data. Let me show you what data you have available so you can really see the journey and the history. This is what I think you should do with it. And this is how I might recommend you prospect it. It's not just calling the contact to request a meeting. It's reaching out to various individuals in the account to add value, build trust, and earn the chance to have a conversation. And if marketing has time, here's some things I've done for you. Like, I've already done some research on the account. I've already looked at the business. Here's the buying committee that I think we should go after. By the way, 2 of these contacts have contact level engagement. Put together some marketing assets you might want to use. I know they're in this industry, so here's 3 case studies from this industry. And I thought this might be helpful to you. Like, that kind of discussion, that kind of human conversation on a one-to-one basis with a rep who just received this qualified account versus qualified contact-based lead, now kind of gets it, I think. They have a chance of being able to pursue this with the way you'd want them to chase it.
It's so true. And I imagine this is true that most of the folks who are reaching out to your company are marketers looking to then engage sales, of course, with an account-based approach. Does your company help with even some of that research, building those marketing assets? Do you do the trainings? Like, walk us through a typical engagement like that. And having done so many, obviously you've got such a fast growing business. What are some of those common themes that just emerge as they're always going to help drive the success and just make it easier?
Yeah. And what we do is we build the engine that powers executing this marketing work at a best practice level. And so in there, the things you'd expect, like we're generating content, we're running campaigns, we're using all the tech that you've bought, we're activating the market, we're generating counts that warrant this threshold being crossed. And then we're providing, we call it an ABM researcher, a resource to really be like a concierge of this lead or new lead or engaged account, and then get it to a place where the rep can be highly successful at converting it. And then we also provide support around reporting and analytics. And for us, like, all of those resourcing is in the managed service model that we bring. And so you need all those pieces equally. It's just as important to have someone make that phone call to the rep, as I just said, as it is to have content, right? It's just as important to run a display ad, just as important to figure out who's high intent and who you're going to market to campaigns which campaigns are going to that account. I talk about it like a car. And if you're missing one piece, you're missing that conversion conversation, or you're missing that enablement for sales, you kind of like a car with no tires. It's got an engine, it's got a chassis, it's got nice seats, has a radio, a steering wheel, but it's missing the tires and wheels, and therefore it can't achieve the goal. You need to have all those pieces working in concert to be able to really go somewhere with an ABM function.
And why do you feel that it's so hard for so many companies to do that? Because again, they're all very well intentioned. They all know they need to make the change. Why is it such a difficult transition?
One, it's expensive to have capabilities to do all of that. I think we have a model that allows you to get it for a very interesting economic basis. But I think there's a bit of a belief as well that we'll take this new ideology, we'll give it to my head of demand gen. They're amazing. They'll figure it out, right? And you've given this huge mission to like one person who could never possibly have enough hours in the day, but also tends to be a generalist, right? And knows lots of things and knows enough to be dangerous, but isn't really an expert on the tech, isn't an expert on enabling sales, isn't a content expert, isn't someone who really knows deeply about how to run engaging media and test and optimize that. And so a lot of companies, I think, have focused more on, giving this mission to generalists who are really busy.
Who also have a day job.
Right. And part of that's been driven by the economic reality that if we can only have 10 more marketers, it would be great. And very few companies have that. And in fact, many of them have shrunk their departments, but not shrunk the work at all. And so there's more work to spread around less people. And then there's also a real shortage of tech expertise. And I think there's so much power in platforms that are out there that can really do amazing things. But very few people are certified on them. Very few people are really deeply experienced in the ABM ones in particular and how to use those. And I think the economic model doesn't allow us to bring in resourcing. US labor is expensive. It's fixed costs. CFOs aren't allowing headcount budgets to increase. And so it almost requires a different way of thinking of how do I get all of this servicing capacity into a smaller budget and then be able to provide this whole engine and car that does all of it for our revenue growth.
Yeah, that makes total sense. One of the things earlier we talked about the human side. I was a 6 Sense customer. I was implementing ABM before I was a professional podcaster. And one of the things that was a huge sort of win for us early on, because again, like it was the same challenge getting sales on board, was, hey, let's take a win. Let's take an account, whether it went all the way to close one or just qualified pipe, and telling that story. Again, like it's sort of like you said, calling that rep and saying like, here's the qualified account. Here's all things that you could do. Here's some suggestions. But on the flip side of that, how do you see the best way to really celebrate the success, but also tell that story of, look at this account. We went through this process and here we landed.
Yeah. I did the same thing when I was a CMO. We had this thing, it was Jacobs Engineering. That was an opportunity that we got that it was one of those like beautiful moments where marketing had 30 touches that were all amazing. And sales got the deal and it was this big new logo that made the quarter. But we went through and actually, after we won the deal, we went back and we said, how did this thing come into our pipeline? And we looked at all these web hits, all of these paid media engagements, all this content interaction, many different people from the buying committee being activated, some by marketing, some by BDRs, some by the account executive, one by our consultant. And we sort of put this entire map of like, this is how we won Jacobs together. This was the journey of the customer. And when you see all of that, all the touch points, we had it, graphic designer came in and beautified it. It was this like awesome slide. We used it in our marketing meetings to say, this is what marketing does. And we almost, I think maybe have over-calibrated in some conversations around how much pipeline, how much conversion, how much revenue, what's our customer acquisition cost, how many 6 QAs. Like we really focus on quantitative impact as marketers. But what we got to a point was folks were like, I want more of the Jacobs opportunities. Can I have more of those? And it became this story that people knew. And I think it's really important when you go through this journey that you have one of those stories. And sure, the quantitative matters and we have to produce ROI for sure, but the stories are people remember, and the stories what helps them understand what marketing's really doing in this new world. And it totally demystifies all of this attribution problem that is sometimes a fool's errand to try to fix. Because it shows all of these things mattered. The website mattered, email mattered, ads mattered, phone calls mattered, sales mattered, marketing mattered. It all mattered, but it mattered in different ways and it produced this result. And that's really what we're here to do.
Yeah, it truly is a team effort. And sellers tend to speak in anecdotes. So it's just been a great way I've seen as well to just tell that story. Dom, I have to go there because you talked about attribution, you talked about data. How can data really help demystify the ABM process for teams that are really just embarking on this new approach? I feel like there's the story, but there's so much of, okay, companies struggle with, is this even working for us, right? We're all in. We've put the investment in place. We've bought the tech. We've got a team like 2X on board to help us. How do we make sure it's working?
You've got to show data for different things. I think one, you have to use data to show how hard it is to activate a prospect. Every time we do one of these, we go through, something that converted and look at how much engagement happened beforehand. It's eye-opening when people see. We had one client last week, it was 50 marketing touches first party and about 250 third party that happened before that thing got to opportunity. That's powerful. I think data can help show how anonymous the journey really is and how important it is that marketing is persistent and available and active in that process. I think data can also put a little more information on helping someone understand where an account is. And, there's lots of signals being thrown off everywhere. There's lots of places where salespeople could go to find that information. Sometimes it's important just to have a really clean, simple report that says, this is the history of the account and this is where it is. And this is, account level, contact level, many different systems all brought into one place. And this is what marketing's doing. And this is where we're moving people from unengaged to engaged. This is how we're seeing that. This is velocity through those programs. People believe it when they see it, but I think they don't believe it intuitively that marketing is going to run all these programs and all these campaigns and do all this ABM, and then I'm going to get this in the outside in the end. This is what's going to get converted to me. Showing them a little bit of like how the machine's working, showing them about, here's the accounts that are here and here's why they're here. And here's what we're doing to move them over here. It's less about the quantitative volumes and conversion rates and numbers. I think we're pretty good at that usually as marketers.
Yeah.
It's more about the records of accounts, like tell stories about accounts, show the accounts, show the contacts, show how many are in each bucket, show there were 50 last week that are here that now moved into this phase. There's things that are moving. I think that visibility is what builds trust and credibility.
Yeah. And I would add to that, I love everything you said. And what the data that you just described can do is just help with expectation setting. Like, yes, there's a hot account. Yes, there's a 6QA, but that doesn't mean, okay, go around and they're ready to sign a piece of paper. Like, no, it does take X number of activities and X engagements, and you've got to multi-thread into this many people. And so I love that because even just setting that expectation really helps then deliver the types of results you're looking to get. We've gone as far as recently just publishing 6QA to opportunity benchmarks by segment. In a commercial account, it takes this many touches on average. In strat, it's this many. In enterprise, it's this many, because it isn't just the one and done. It's not like, here you go. Here's an account, go close the business.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We kind of know it, we feel it, but how ineffective the cold calling model by itself is. I'm sure we've all been doing this for a while. I made my bonus many years based on my cold calling programs or my appointment setting programs at the time. Those are gone. And we're still kind of clinging to them in some ways because we know that sending the BDRs off to make calls is what does generate engagement and opportunity, but that is not how buyers want to buy. When you succeed, it's because you got lucky sometimes more than that tactic is actually what's creating demand in the market.
It's interesting. I was just thinking the vernacular of this world of ABM, whatever, HBM, I'm going to call with that actually. You're doing the same data set every, whatever the monthly, weekly cadence, and you're starting to, I guess, teach or get sales and everyone to talk about things differently. And I witnessed this myself, but also like, do you see where there's a point where, all right, we're doing this weekly, monthly, reporting on those stories. These are the new data sets, that there's that sort of moment, there's a period where suddenly the words coming out of the mouth of the sales team and the marketing team are this new vernacular, this new vocabulary. And it's almost like this sort of natural evolution. Is it just repeatability? Is it just hammering with the same kind of data set? Or do you think there's something else that helps to, maybe it is flicking a switch in terms of a brain of the sales team and so forth thinking about it, but like, what can help that transition, you think?
sometimes it's you just have this amazingly inspirational leader that rallies the whole organization around this new religion and everybody gets it. That's probably 2% of the time. Usually,
Damn it.
that does happen though. You do see some of those, and those are really exciting when you see them. Most often, it's that the individual reps have found that their life is easier because of this new way of selling and marketing. That they found that this thing that was routed to them was better. And they got a meeting, and it was a real deal that they happened to just step into at exactly the right time. I think most salespeople are very open to listen to things that might help them, but they don't really change what they do every day to make them money until they see that it works. You have to show that it works. And it's almost like the way to get momentum and the way to this stating the obvious, like, is to have impact, is to have results, is to have something that is clear and tangible that it worked. And it's really hard for the, reasons I mentioned, though. There's not enough resourcing to do it. There's not enough expertise to do it. There's a bottleneck on the content side. There's tech we don't know how to use. There's budget we don't have. There's no one with any time to do this research and brief sales. But if you can get more of that capacity and produce more impact, that's how the change will get accelerated. And simply that it's important that we make that rep's day more successful than it was before. And they will want more of those days.
Yeah. I mean, you hit on it, right? Time is money for reps, but there's just so many operational and resource constraints, flat budgets, lower budgets. How does 2X's marketing as a service model provide a solution? And what are you seeing with some of your clients in terms of the benefit they have from working with a company like yours?
Yeah. So the core idea behind our firm is that we've been innovating for so long as marketers. And I was like this when I was a CMO, buying a lot of tech, really obsessing about the program budget. However, our headcount, where half our budget tends to sit, kind of like the same it's been for many years.
Yeah.
And there's huge issues with that organization being able to use the new tech, follow a new ideology, and have enough bandwidth to really do what they need to do. Our model is a global operating model. So we have delivery centers all around the world, some in Southeast Asia. And what we're able to really do is provide the managed service model for B2B marketing. So for some of our clients, manage 40% of their marketing work. And so shift that work from insourced generalists into outsourced experts. That means that rather than having a generalist demand gen person, you might have a 6th Sense certified marketer. You might have someone who is totally focused on Jasper enabled content creation. Someone who really understands how to brief a rep on a new opportunity that just came to them. And because of the offshore model, we're sort of able to not only move 40% of our clients' org into this new model, but by moving that 40%, cost 60 to 70% less, which could allow us to almost double that part of the model, or allow a bunch of cost savings to occur that then can fund other things, fund other programs, fund tech, fund a budget give back, and really allow the marketing budget on the org side to function very differently. And a lot of marketers have gone through organizational restructuring or are thinking about that. And our model kind of fits in as a way of like, you need more flexibility, more agility, more lower cost labor economics. It's a way to bring that into the equation and give you more for less, which is what we're all trying to do.
Of course, not to mention tap into the expertise that the team has because they're doing this for so many other companies. And so, they know this is what's working across the board, or here's a play that worked well with one company that is similar. And so I think there's just that efficiency play and that expertise play as well.
That's exactly right. Yeah, we've got a team of 1,000 B2B marketers innovating every day. Most of our clients don't manage 1,000-person marketing department. And so there's all of that innovation and learning. We've got over 70 6th Sense certified marketers on our team, and all the other certifications you'd expect, Marketo, Salesforce, Drift, expertise around ABM, AI. Those kinds of thinkers, I think, can bring real innovation into your engine. And we also do it with FTEs, which I think is very different than a lot of marketing service partners and agencies out there. Might have like a pool of people that service all their clients. We put a dedicated team on a client. And so that team immerses themselves in that client's message and brand and story and tech and go-to-market model. So they kind of have all the dedication of an internal FTE with the certified expertise that we've been able to acquire because of the economics. But then also they're in this third-party innovation center that is constantly learning new things. And you kind of get like all the benefits of a third-party expert plus the internal first-party marketer with the offshore economics to go with it. It's a very different way to run the marketing function.
I mean, again, having that level of expertise probably solves for this a little bit, but from a tech perspective, I think marketers have a tendency to get shiny object syndrome a little bit. You know, in the past, having like, ooh, new tool.
No.
Right? Yeah. Yes.
Marketers.
Whoever has the most toys wins the most, right? No. Yeah, obviously, the ABM in and of itself, right, is a strategy that, you know, at the end of the day, could you do ABM without tech? Yes, to some extent. But how do you sort of draw that line or give some advice around like the next tool, the next integration, the next piece? We're all going to put data here, put data there. Like, what is the line between necessary tech and the next toy? And then I'm assuming you see that a lot and probably maybe have to put the kibosh a bit on it.
There's a lot of tech out there. We've been trained to buy tech by the analysts, our peers. And first of all, I find the biggest issue I see is that there's so much tech that has so much potential that all those demos that the software vendor did actually are real, but no one's implemented it in the fullest way because they haven't been using it in the way it can be used. Gartner does a report every year. It's scary of the state of MarTech. And last year, they say 33% of MarTech's being used. It was 58% like 2 years ago. So we're on the wrong trajectory. And so what thing we find most often is that if we could only just look at the tech that we bought and fully use it, integrate it to each other, fully bring the value out of it, put programs in market, build all the testing and optimization and reporting and analytics that it can have and use it, there's massive gains in performance and impact from that. Sometimes you need less tech as well. In the sort of evolution, there's lots of different tools that are now replaceable by platforms. I think the core stack that a marketing department needs is not that big. It's a CRM, it's a map, it's an ABM platform, it's a CMS, it's some source of data for contact and account information, it's some sales automation, maybe some experience stuff on the website. That's not a lot of tech actually in the end. You really need to run marketing. The key is using what you have. And especially as you have platforms, 6sense obviously one of them, that can do so much. Live in it, use it, bring programs to life, build different programs. You get way more value, I think, out of using the tech that you have better than you do by buying more tech right now.
Yeah, I love that. And I know your company provides health assessments, right? Which is almost the place you have to start, because let's just, again, use what you've got, but use it to its full potential. And so can you talk a little bit about the results of health checks, but also impact of 2X across its client base?
Yeah. Health checks always identify a low-hanging fruit, which I'm excited about. And a lot of the health checks we do at no cost. So we'll come in and we'll say, hey, this is the tech you have. This is how you're using it. This is what's working really well. Sometimes that gives you good momentum if you want to go back to your CFO and say, see, I am spending money in a good way. This is valuable. But there's always things we find of like, hey, if you just connected this over here, you could eliminate this whole workflow process. Or if you just focused more on this area, we think you can get more throughput. This is working, but it's not being focused on enough. And we think that's a great area of more attention. And so we always identify low-hanging fruit. We always identify opportunities to just grab more value without, frankly, spending more money, which I'm excited about because I think that's what marketers need right now is a way to deliver more for less. In the value that we have, all of our clients, when we do work for them, when our clients are almost exclusively in the business-to-business space, most of them are tech companies, a lot of them are large enterprise tech companies, other professional services, healthcare, manufacturing. They all see both a significant reduction in cost because of our labor model, at the same time that they see an improvement in revenue or pipeline or other marketing metric result. And we think that you can have both. You don't have to trade cost reduction for impact. We're all trying to get more results, but we're also getting less money, and the organization needs both at the same time. And we're able to produce amazing stories that have both.
Wow. It sounds like a win-win in most cases for that. So we're coming towards the end of our time together, and we have a question that we like to ask every guest that we have. And it's really, what is the most ridiculous thing you've been asked to do in your career? And it could be something good. It could be something bad. It could be any time in your career. We've heard smuggling stories. We've heard horrible customer experiences. We've heard all sorts of fun things. So anything that comes to mind that just, yep, that's a good one.
Man, where's a question to hit without the prep in the
I
interview?
totally
So
did
folks,
not.
This is a real
Didn't send
cold
it.
question I just received.
I did not send it.
Here's the thing that comes to mind. I was doing ABM for Siemens, and we were trying to win this deal at the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We sold a unified communications product, basically replacing phone systems and moving to voice over IP and doing actually what we do now every day. But 10 years ago, that was really innovative for Zooming and Teaming and IMing. And so we want to get this deal for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And they're like, Dom, you're the ABM guy, go figure it out. And so I had to generate a very specific ABM program because there were no rules at that time. I was like, I want to know where the CIO lives. So I found out where the CIO lives. This is about an hour from where I were. Drove to his house, didn't knock on his door, and then drove from his house to where he worked. And then we bought all the billboards on the way to, and then we did a lot of other cool too. We had a surge of trucks that were doing servicing in the local Harrisburg region right around when our RFP was under consideration. So we had great brand awareness with physical, and we were doing all kinds of other things. We didn't get the deal in the end, so I guess it didn't work, but it was a really interesting marketing program.
Wow. I don't know if that's ridiculous, genius, or somewhere in between, but that's definitely...
I think it's somewhere in between, leaning towards genius. I love it.
I think we need to add some line items in the budget for commute-based marketing. That seems to be what we're talking about there.
Another acronym.
Yeah. Commute, CBM. So we have HBM, CBM. All right, we got all that written down. So it's good. Any interview that comes out with multiple acronyms, we know we're in good shape. So,
Dom, this was so much fun. Always love hanging with you, but thanks so much. I think folks are going to walk away with a bunch of really good ideas, including billboards.
Absolutely.
That was 10 years ago. This is fun. We're in such an interesting point of being able to really drive sales adoption and get real sales value. I mean, we've been doing ABM long enough, and it's at that tipping point where I think the sales organization needs this desperately, and we have the ability to help them. And so anything I can contribute to that mission is a job well done.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You've been listening to Revenue Makers.
Do you have a revenue project you were asked to execute that had wild success? Share your story with us at sixthsense.com/revenue, and we might just ask you to come on the show.
And if you don't want to miss the next episode, be sure to follow along on your favorite podcast app.